Hey guys, for today's lesson, or for tonight's lesson, you should have out your Chapter 20, Section 3 notes, one on social and cultural tensions. And I think it would also be a good idea for you to have out your vocab sheets. And I would say that you're going to be focusing on from modernism down through probably about flapper or so. So where I want to start is this is our goal for today, okay? We need to make a decision, and we'll look a little bit more at this tomorrow in class. I actually have a video that we're going to look at in class tomorrow to make some decisions over how torn the United States was over its own future. And what this boils down to for us, what we're going to focus on is the conflict between traditional and modern thinking, the balance between what we'll call cultural conservatism, which should be linked with traditional, and cultural liberalism, which should be linked with the modern thinking, and then changes that had happened in society and the backlash that they created. So things that were happening in society and how the traditionalists viewed them and how the modernists viewed them. And so for us, the faces that I would like for you to put with both of these schools of thought is for the modernists. And what a modernist would be the people who were willing to look at new thinking and accept some of that thinking into the way that we did things, whether it's economically, politically. And then traditionalists would be the people who would look at new thinking and say, that's change and in a direction that we don't need to go. Instead, we should be looking back at the times when we were most successful and trying to duplicate or replicate that. So when we look at America in the 1920s, these two ideologies, these two philosophies are really at odds because so much is changing. The reason that I have Wilson here for the modern thought is because he represents a lot of what the traditionalists hated. He's a progressive who helped to implement a lot of progressive movement, things like graduated income tax, things like regulations in business, things like federal control over the economy, and also it increased our role in the world, World War I, and his attempt to get the United States in the League of Nations. And Warren G. Harding would represent the traditionalists because he represents this idea of a new normalcy, where the Republican Party and leaders like him would like to see the progressive era and our involvement in World War I be just kind of like a hiccup in our history, and we get back to our basic understanding of how this country works, where the economy just stays separate from the government stays completely out of business, and times can be good. The question that we're going to have to wrestle with is, once you allow for some modern thought into government, can you ever back away from it? And that's something I want you to think about. Can you ever, once you start to make these changes, once you start to go in the direction of tax and spend economics, can you ever really get fully away from that? Here are just 4 images that challenge the thinking of modernists and traditionalists. Here you have, kind of a socialite dinner with elite rich people, and the idea of wealth was something that the progressives tried to target. They wanted the wealth to be more evenly distributed. Here, during World War I, we know there's this great migration north of African Americans, changing the landscape of American cities. And traditionalists and modernists are going to grapple over and really fight over what that means for not only northern cities, but American politics in general. What is owed to this group of people? And we can see a grouping of traditionalists here who want to see a return to the 19th century, where America is looking out for true Americans first. And an organization like the Ku Klux Klan is going to have its peak membership in its history during the 1920s based on these idea of traditionalist thinking. And this is representing an idea of modernist thinking with what we call the flappers, which were, there were women in the 1920s who were trying to shed what society was trying to put on them as the expectations of what a woman and what a woman's life should be. They wanted to be independent. They wanted to have their own way of thinking. And we see that in this image right here. And so what I want you to come away with from this video tonight is, when you look at this idea of traditionalism versus modernism, when you look at new thinking versus traditional thinking, I'm not saying that one is valued better than the other. You know, some people may put a positive spin on the idea of modern, but there are some who think that tradition and holding firm to what you believe in and have believed in is more important. So what I want you to think about is, as you're looking at your notes, you know, what are the comparisons here? When you look at things like the basic makeup of the population, were more people modernists or were more people traditionalists? What were their views on education? What were their views on immigration? We're going to see in the 1920s, for the first time in our history, a quota system to try to limit immigration. Is that traditionalism or is that modernism? What were their views on prohibition, ending the sale and production of alcohol in America? I want you to be able to summarize their views. And what I'd like you to do, instead of a Google Doc tonight, you know, you've watched the video, and so this is your assignment tonight. It's different, and so the only people who are going to do this the right way are the people who are watching the video. What I'd like you to do is, if you follow the link for the homework under the video tonight, it's going to take you directly to my email address. And what I'd like you to do is, I'd like for you to send me an email, 3 or 4 sentences, and I would like for you to explain to me your summary of how modernists viewed what was happening in the 1920s, or not both, or how traditionalists were viewing what was happening in America in the 1920s. And I would like for you to try to, in your summary, use at least two of the events, whether it's, you know, the arguments over evolution, the arguments over literature, the arguments over immigration, any of those from section 3 in chapter 20. I would like for you to use at least 2 of those in your summary, and you need to convince me, you need to explain to me your understanding of this really important struggle in the 1920s over people who are looking back at the late 19th century and saying, we've got to go back to that because that's when we were at our best, the traditionalists, and those who look at things like the progressive movement, our involvement in World War I, and they say, more of that is what we need. We need to keep on pushing forward, and we believe in what we call progress, because they both have very different definitions of what equals progress. So the link will take you to my email. Your email should include a summary of your understanding of one or the other, using at least two of the issues that they differed on. So I look forward to seeing your email in my inbox either tonight or early tomorrow morning. Have a great night.